Welcome to Leadership Weekly. It's good to be with you again today. Leadership Weekly is the video that we do on a regular basis to equip and encourage and inform you in your critical role as small group leaders at Grace Fellowship Church. Today, we're going to do something a little different, or at least our form is going to be a bit different. I'd like to invite all of you into a team meeting and a discussion that is, I think, very pertinent for this time of the year. And the question that we're teeing up today is, how do we maximize this summer season, both for ourselves personally and also for those that are in our group? All of us are leading or have been leading small groups at Grace, and so we all have those that we're discipling, those that we're investing in our groups, and as we know, it's important for us to be healthy as well. So that's the question to tee up. I think there's some rich tips and tricks and suggestions among the four of us, and I'll just throw the question out on the table. How in your lives, Kelley and Pat and Tara, have you seen the summer months specifically to be an option for rest and refreshment and maximizing?
Well, I'll jump in just because we want to
Great.
make most of the time here. I can honestly say, obviously, I love doing what I get to do every day. I kind of pinch myself, but I also know that time away, even from what you love to do, I've found to be very, very important. I heard Mark Batterson say sometimes change of place and a change of pace leads to opportunities. This is my words now, of creativity and reflection. I just know that even in doing things that you love, that you're on a treadmill a little bit, and sometimes stopping that, creating a different set. So like in the summers, this will be year 43 that the Goodmans go to Vermont. It's hard to believe. We've done different.
43 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. We started going, Betsy's best childhood friend lives there. They've known each other since they were 2. And the guy that eventually led Betsy to the Lord, Betsy introduced him to her best childhood friend. They get married and they lived in Vermont. So we've been making this trek. And so our kids have grown up, and it's too long of a story, but it's just like hallowed ground there. You know, the beauty, the pace. I love to fish. We golf. We just eat ice cream. We just have a great time. But I will say this, it's really interesting for me personally that some of my clearest, I think most inspired from the Lord for me personally, ideas come when I'm away from where I normally do a bunch of stuff, and at the times I least expect it, when my brain is just like down, nothing's being required, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I'm just my most relaxed in the mornings, drinking a cup of coffee, or even on a run. I know, it's crazy as that sounds, I'll get ideas that are just more free and floating. So that's been one thing that's been really helpful. Another thing for me is the summers. This is a little sheet, you can't really see it, but these are different areas of my life that twice a year, I don't live my life in compartments, none of us do, but I take the privilege of breaking my life down into some compartments, like my walk with the Lord, my relationship with Bets, my kids, our finances, my physical life, my personal learning. And I just try to think about those areas a little more intensely. So this summer, I will do that for the fall and winter, and begin to at least think for the next 3 to 4 months, what are some things that I want to just work on, 1 or 2 things in these different areas of my life to keep me sharp and learning. So it's been really fun. It's kind of great. Summer's been a great time for that.
I love it. What I hear you saying, Pat, is even though your activities are different and the location is different, that the rhythms of you connecting with the Lord actually are strengthened when you're away and when you kind of disengage from the day-to-day ministry. That's really good. Kelley, what are your thoughts? How can leaders or serve themselves really and those in their group this summer?
I have been thinking about this because I was a teacher as well as in ministry for a really long time. And so what I used to do was charge into the year in September. And by the time May and June came around, my tank really was close to empty, and I could push myself through that. But what I needed to make sure that I did was to take every opportunity to be refilled. And so for me, what it looked like was to stop giving out in all of the normal ways and start looking for God to be my replenisher and to refill my tank. And I did that in a few ways, and I continue to do that in a few ways. you know, if I was going to hang out with people that I was teaching or in ministry with, I made sure that it was in a completely recreational format, that we were, you know, out at a park or having lunch, and that the onus was not on me to plan a time, to have an agenda, any of those things. I would encourage us also to hang out with people who are either on our ministry level, like other leaders, or to look for somebody who's older and more experienced to pour into us a little bit during this season, because that is really how we grow. Sometimes we spend so much time pouring out, and there's growth in that, but to stop and intentionally say, okay, Lord, where am I now? Just like Pat was saying, where am I now, and where are you taking me? Let me hear from you. And Tara, I hope that this is okay. This is one of the things that you have told me that I so value. And that is, you know, scripture tells us that Jesus and the Holy Spirit are always interceding for us. And so a few times over the last 6 months, I've taken Tara's advice and asked, okay, what are you praying for me, Lord? How are you interceding for me? How can I align with you in that and then walk in it and let you just refill and recharge?
Yeah, oh, it's good.
Yeah.
It reminds me, you know, in terms of the recreational time, recreational is recreation, right? And so that I would just emphasize that also. As you are leading your groups, leaders, you may feel like, well, I'd like to get back together with those people throughout the summer, but I don't want to feel like I need to have a lesson or a plan. Like, just go to a park or find someone's house that has a pool. And I know we're still coming off of all the COVID precautions, so you know, do it wisely and do it in a healthy way. But I would just emphasize that, say, find a way to have fun, and summer really lends itself to that. I also love your time to grow yourself. I'm reading a book called Strength to Love, which is by Martin Luther King Jr. And it's actually a number of his sermons. And in this season, that's an important investment. And I want to keep growing in that area. So whether you're sitting on the beach, we're going to be away next week, and you know, I'm thinking of that's a book that I can read while I have unstructured time that helps me grow as a leader. So that's really good. Tara.
Yes. Well, you know, one of the things we always, JP and I always will say is that summer's a time to trickle charge your battery, to kind of just do that slow charge of the battery, you know, because we do throughout the school year expend a lot of energy. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. You know, I think sometimes a great way to do that in the summer is maybe do an activity or a craft or something artistic that you don't maybe have time to do, or, you know, go on a hike or whatever. I know also in the summer, I just love to read, and a lot, what I've actually found is I just pray and ask, Lord, what should I read? And then invariably I'm just reading it for now, but it ends up impacting the whole rest of the year. And a lot of times it's been random books that I didn't see any connection as to why I was putting these together, but often my ministry has come out of that. So I don't go into the summer thinking I'm going to fill up my tank now for ministry. But what ends up happening, I found, is as the Lord fills me up personally, that's where I minister out of. And so I'm just looking forward to reading some this summer. I actually probably am going to listen to some talks that I haven't had a chance to listen to. Looking into some things like that just to grow personally. And one other thing, I often find that the summer is just a really neat time. Like you said, Pat, you never know when it's going to come in, that revelation from the Lord about the next season. But I really feel like this time in the summer is a chance for me to pray and look into what's happening in the next season. And I was thinking about in Mark, you know, Jesus had just spent a bunch of time healing people, and he got up early in the morning and he went off by himself. And everyone's like, hey, you're going to keep doing it? Or we keep healing in this town? He's like, nope, we're going to go to another town. And so often I find in the summer, the Lord kind of gently redirects what's going to be happening for that next season. But if I'm so busy continuing to do what I've been doing in the previous season, I then miss kind of what that new change of direction is. So I have found that you can't be like, all right, Lord, right now, give me the direction. But over this 2-month period, it kind of comes, like Pat mentioned, when you least expect it. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Also just spending some time with other people. And just one other thing as it relates to the group, you know, you can say to your group, hey, you know, we'd love to get together, but I'm not going to organize anything this summer. Maybe one of you will take it upon yourself. Because a lot of times in a group, there's unrecognized leadership. People don't, when you're leading, they're like, we'll just let the leader do it. That person always does that. But when you say, hey, listen, would one of you be willing to plan something, or what one of, I mean, and I'm not even saying you have to do something with your group, but it's just a great time to say, hey, listen, I really am going to take completely off this leadership hat, if, and pass it on to others if they would want to, or even say, hey, listen, why don't you all get together with one another? Invite at least one other person out for coffee this summer or for a walk or whatever it might be, and kind of take that pressure off of yourself completely.
Yeah, and that I'm thinking specifically of women in the word groups and Ironman tables. Normally we've been in kind of a semester rhythm where you get to this point in the year and kind of the semester's over, and so maybe there's it's like, well, I guess I'm done for the year. The Jewish Sabbath started the night before, right? So the Sabbath was 24 hours, but it didn't start with the sun coming up like most of us think our day starts. It actually started with the sun going down. And the sun going down in that evening was really rest for the remainder of the Sabbath, which was when the sun came up, and then the Sabbath ended, at sundown the next day. So what if we thought about the summers as, instead of, catching our breath from the previous year, really ramping up for the next year? And imagine if all of us that are listening to this came into September off of several months of engagement with the Lord, rest, and listening to Him for the coming school year.
Probably the way I'm going to be most effective when I'm at my healthiest, not when I'm just trying to, fight my way through or just endure. But, when I'm at my best, people get my best, not when I'm not at my best. And so I think I learned a little later than the game than I wish, but I just realized, I'm actually a whole human being. I think there's times where you think that you're just this, but like you're saying, Kelley, I have a physical aspect of my life, and this is all, God made all this. Like, all these systems have to go together. I have emotional life, I certainly want to experience the Lord, and it isn't compartmentalized. It's all integrated, but it matters. And when that flows, and when I have time to laugh and to make memories with my family and my grandkids or whoever it is, the Lord gives you little, like even a few years ago, I remember with our grandkids, we had all these little ones there every year. And I started thinking, my gosh, like, this is a unique chance. Like, how do I have a chance to offer my life to my grandkids? And it wasn't like complicated or long, but I felt like the Lord, like you were saying, Tara, just said, well, just do something with them that's high touch. And so I felt like the Lord gave me a couple little ideas with nature. And so, we talked about the one day, the Lord being our rock, and I had like 5 of them at that time sitting on a rock, you know what I mean? And we had this conversation, different ages, and we've done some different things, but it's so filled my soul. It hasn't been hard but it's been so life-giving. Then when I come home, it's not like, I got to go back to work and give all this stuff. It's like, no, I'm just going and doing what I do, and I'm giving and me happens to be pretty filled up and in full right now, and I'm talking about those experiences and those ideas because they just came, but it's putting yourself in a place where they actually can happen. So, it's really good.
That family piece is huge too, Pat. I jotted that down as someone else was talking. But I would encourage you, leaders, lean into time with your family during this season. A lot of schools are out. A lot of schools have been out, but they're definitely out for the summer. And you have time on vacation, and like, just lean in with your kids. For those of you that have families and kids and grandkids, and let's kind of hit the ground running in September, but really feel like we've taken the time this summer to be alongside and invest in the people that are closest to us, because you're making disciples in your family too.
Amen.
Not just in your Wednesday night group or your Thursday morning group, it's in your family. And so I'm just reminded of that piece, when you get on an airline, right? We've all had that pre-flight briefing from the flight attendant that says, in the event of an emergency, the oxygen masks will drop. And remember what they say next? Put yours on first.
Yeah.
And then you can help others. And first time you hear that, you might think, well, that's kind of selfish. I'd want to help my kids first. Well, but if you, like you said, Pat, if you're not whole and if you're not healthy, then how do we help others? So, yeah, well, I want to make a couple of announcements, but I just want to read this first. Mark 6, verse 30 to 32. The apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour. Would love to hear more about the ministry tour, huh? And told him all they had done and taught. Sounds like a full year, maybe a full year, 9 months of ministry. Then Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. He said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his disciples didn't even have time to eat. So they left by boat for a quiet place where they could be alone.
Mm.
So we have modeled by Jesus, who was God incarnate, that it's important to take time to rest. We know that some of you just started. We know some of you are listening to this and thinking, well, my small group just started. Should I stop it? That's not what we're saying. We're saying whatever the rhythm looks like this summer, it probably is going to be a different type of rhythm for your group. Maybe your group just started and you want to accelerate, and you're going to use this summer as a time to really connect and get to know them. And so we'd encourage that too. We're going to keep doing the sermon-based content off of the series this summer, but that's still going to be available to you. And then finally, I just wanted to update you on the building reopening. We actually are calling it re-engaging because rather than reopening, we never really closed as a church, but we know the building, we weren't able to engage here at the building. There's a team that's working on how to do that really well this summer. And so we don't have a date yet. We'll keep you updated in terms of weekend services. Right now, we're going to keep doing them online. And so I hope you're engaging in that and enjoying that. There might even be some opportunities as we go through the summer for watch parties or for getting maybe your small group coming over to someone's house. A lot of people might feel more comfortable getting into a small group as a first step or getting in person in their small group versus coming to a building which has all of its other challenges. But stay tuned for that. We're inviting you whenever you feel ready to start meeting in person, or some of you meeting in person, and maybe others are going to be on Zoom, but we're excited about what God's going to do with that. So we love you, leaders. We're going to keep doing on somewhat regular basis. It won't be every week, but we'll keep engaging with you in this medium through Ldrship Wkly, but we're going to keep sending out the sermon-based content each week, and we're praying for you. Please email throughout the summer. We're going to be doing some planning. Please be praying for us for the coming school year and for how we can continue to make disciples who make disciples, because that's why we're here. But great to be with you. We love you guys. Have a great summer, and we'll stay in touch moving forward.